Hi guys, and welcome to Darkest Star ASMR. This video is the second one of my memoir retelling of my life kind of video. We are still going to stay in the 70s in this video because it was such a nice time in my life. A time of peace and things like that. Some people asked me, how did the 70s smell? And we have to think back to the 70s. I must say it was smoky. You see, there were no regulations to where you could smoke, except I think in operation halls on hospitals and things like that. But people were smoking in restaurants, cabs, subways, ferries, not ferries, but boats. I remember, as I told you in the other video, we used to go out to this island to Möja before we actually moved out, as soon as we had a chance, because it was a nice place to visit, and our roots for my family are out there. And I remember those boat trips out to the island with good heart, because there was this old rusty junk boat called Skarpö, Sharp Island actually, if you translate it. And for some reason I think everyone who took a trip to the city was on that boat whenever we was on it, because it was like crap filled with people. And there were a lot of people drinking because they had obviously or probably been into the city getting booze because there are no booze stores on the island. You have to order still today. If you want like a bottle of whiskey, you have to order it through the local store, and then it will come kind of like a couple of days later. So people just went into the city before the weekend and they kind of stocked up on beers and booze, which made the trips out to the island like a party every single time, especially if you were in the in one of the ends of the boat, in the back of the boat. Sorry, I'm a little bit tired today. It's Sunday and I didn't sleep very well. So people were smoking, they were drinking beer, singing. It was a really party mood in that boat every time. And my grandmother, she was like, I can't say that she didn't drink at all, but she didn't actually like drinking that much. She was also pretty, should I say, religious. It was not like he prayed every second or like screamed at God, but I know she had this Christian belief. This is tobacco. I'm going to smoke a pipe. I hope you don't mind. Not everyone is a health freak these days. Yeah, so there was smoke. The smoke were thick on those boats. But I haven't had any health problems, at least not from that, and I don't actually know anyone from my generation that has passed away due to smoking in boats or restaurants or things like that. I'm sorry, I have to clean the pipe a little bit. When you smoke a pipe, not many people I know do these days, but it gets like this pipe oil, which is tobacco, into the shaft, and you get it in your mouth, and it's not nice. Actually, you have this thin pipe cleaners too. Yeah, but I don't have any, so I have to just use a paper. So yeah, I would say that the 70s were pretty heavy dosed in smoke. And another thing that was a bit strange, when you look back at the 70s, it's always depicted as brown or like pastel colors. Yeah, sorry, my microphone fell over. Yeah, it's always depicted as like brown or orange or pastel colors, and everyone had brown Manchester pants or tweed. I think most people make fun of the 70s because it was an odd time. But I actually remember there was this show on Swedish television which was on. I don't think if it was on every day, but at least once a week, called Hylands hörna. Hyland was a guy and hörna is corner, so Hylands corner. Think late night with Jay Leno or something. That's pretty much what it was. It was this guy Hyland, and he had a band playing, and he had guests. And once actually there was a big scandal on the show, because we had this Swedish actor, his name is Per Oscarsson, and he actually undressed naked in that show, which of course was not appropriate at the time. This was the 70s after all, so it became kind of like rage against the program, and I don't know how that ended. Anyway, in the show there was a house band, I don't know the name of it, but in it was this guy who played bass, I think. And my grandmother was secretly a little bit, I think, attracted to the guy. So she was always like, oh, he's coming on. And in some weird way, the guy had like sideburns down here. He had almost these kind of glasses, but with a thicker bow and almost square and much bigger. And he had like curly blonde hair and a little bald spot, I think. Thinking about it now, he would probably appear as some kind of parody person. But at the time, I remember, oh, I want to look like that guy when I grow up. He's really cool. So I guess that what we take for granted as funny or parody wise with the 70s, it was actually a way that people wanted to look. How strange that might seem. But on the other hand, how do we look today? I bet in 10-20 years we're going to look back and think, oh my god, how could people do that? Like, we have these bimbofied persons, and I don't care if someone gets offended, because it's so ridiculous. They pump up their lips like duck beaks, and I don't know what they do. If they kind of thins out the nose, they kind of look like an early PlayStation 1 Lara Croft, and it's not good looking. It looks absolutely hideous. And I've seen many girls do that, and I'm sorry, but please be natural. Because personally, I don't like to play with dolls. Yeah, so the 70s were it was strange. And a thing that I didn't touch upon in my previous video was the darkness. I always been drawn to darkness, horror, things that go bump in the night. And I think that my first experience with horror was when I was taken to a Tivoli, an amusement park in Sweden that's called the Green Meadows, Gröna Lund. And in that amusement park they have a ghost train actually. By today's standards it's still there. I think they rearranged the attractions inside it, but basically it's the same. It's very cheesy. It's paper mache creatures and things like that. Like you sit in this carriage and you are going around this track, and things pop out at you at various times. Like you have a wall with plates who pretends to fall on you, and you meet the train that's like beep and have this big headlight on you, and there are bats coming down from the ceiling and a big crocodile, the thing. And it looks really cheesy by today's standard, but it almost gave me a heart attack when I was a kid. And you see, I went twice, and something happened during the second run, because I was terrified the first time around already. But in a strange coincidence, one of the monsters, or whatever you want to call it, didn't work the first time. So when I went the second time, I thought I'm gonna fix it. I'm going to live through this. And at the end of the ride, it was this huge glowing face that kind of emitted a horn-like sound, like but high. And I basically shit my pants. And the next time I rode that ghost train, I was terrified. I had my eyes closed all the time, just peeking into the darkness, and I started to make up these images in my head that was far worse than the attraction really was. So that was when my first spark of love for horror, because at the same time that it was scary, I loved the feeling. The second thing was a movie called The Canterville Ghost. I think I've talked about it in some other videos, but it is a TV movie, British TV movie with David Niven as the Canterville Ghost. And they sent that one pretty late on telly, and I wasn't supposed to watch it because it's a ghost story, and they thought I couldn't handle it. So I sneak peeked through the door from the bedroom, and in the movie I actually got a copy of it here. I had searched for this movie for years before I didn't really know which movie it was. I know it was The Ghost of Canterville, but I didn't know which version, so it was just by a fluke that I found this. Anyway, in the movie, David Niven as the ghost has this room where he has all these masks that he uses as the ghost, and there are some pretty creepy images of those masks, like corpse with one eye hanging out, and I was terrified again, but the same nice feeling. So after that I started to look at pictures of skeletons, and I loved vampires. I begged my mom to take me go watch Nosferatu, Werner Herzog's with Klaus Kinski's version from 1879, I think. Sorry. And I remember My favorite record was a Swedish actor called Stig Järrel who read The Ghost of Canterville on a record, and I listened to that 1,000 times. If I know, I actually have the record cover. The record is unfortunately broken, but the cover is in my ceiling. Might show you that sometime. So yeah, I had an early love for the macabre and darkness, horror, and that has shaped me through my life, because I've never really stopped caring for the dark, the love of old castles, gothic, you know. My favorite house would probably be an old mansion out in nowhere, or a big castle just walking around like a ghost at night. Well guys, that's all we have time for this Sunday. I think this video is gonna be pretty long anyway. If I come up with more ideas or more memories from the 70s, I will probably make a third part of the 70s. Otherwise we will move on in the next video to the 80s, and when I moved out here to the island for the first time, Maria, and the birth of my little sister, my first little sister Jeanette, which was actually in the 70s, it was 79, but yeah, so I hope that you enjoy this little series. It's not much, I'm not an important person, but sometimes maybe it can be interesting to just hear of an average guy, his life, what shaped him, what made him do what he did. You know, it doesn't have to be spectacular. We are all spectacular in our own ways, because, you know, we are unique. Every single one of us are unique. And before some political correct social justice warrior mention it in the comments, this is not a Nazi hat or a something like that. This is a Polish, I think, Air Force cap that I really like, because it gives that old sailor look. I love it, and it's nice. So no, I'm not a Nazi. I know someone tried to trigger a reaction, but in a video. But sorry, I dislike everyone equally. Just kidding. Okay, have a nice Sunday guys. I love you. We'll see you in the next video. And remember, there can't be any light without darkness.